Herweiler with the Osceola here with Ingram Smith, CEO of the Battle's End, the newest Florida State NIL collective on the day of their public launch. Ingram, how's it going?
It's great, man. I really appreciate you having me on. This has been a fun stretch, and obviously today is a great highlight for us as we're able to open it up to public availability. And a lot of people have expressed an interest in getting involved, and we've launched our website earlier today, and have had a fantastic response so far. So excited to be able to talk to you about the Battle's End today, and really excited about the response that we've had from the broader fan base so far in the 12 hours or so, or I guess 10 hours that we've had open availability.
Yeah, I guess talk me through. We're looking at the bigger picture first. I guess we talked. I think earlier, right before. I think kind of the private launch when you kind of had the private funding and all. I guess walk me through the first 80 days. Obviously, a hectic time. Obviously, a time where I would say y'all made a pretty instant impact in the NIL space. Just what has that been? I guess what you thought you'd be getting into, and I guess what was the reception like, even when it was still a private entity.
Yeah. So it's the craziest thing that I've ever been a part of, and it was really a lot of fun. I've been fortunate to be around Florida State athletics for 12 or 13 years or so, and the most prominent involvement that I've had has been with the Nolecast, the podcast I started with Bud Elliott back in 2010 or whatever it was. But the last 6 months or so have just been incredible. I mean, kind of a loose grouping of friends and a lot of people that just realized that maybe amongst ourselves we had the resources to try something like this. We had the bandwidth to try something like this, and we looked at the season and kind of with each game that the team won in a row in the backstretch of that season, the importance of our group kind of continued to grow. And by the week before Florida, we knew that we didn't know that Florida State was going to beat Florida, but certainly looked like they might. And you had a chance to really make a big statement here with retention and the ability to keep the roster together. And internally, we felt that NIL is interesting, and there's certainly some characters out there in it, but that there had been a market inefficiency or a lack of a proper valuation of talent that was already on your roster. So we knew we wanted to come out of the gate. Retention was going to be our original focus, and we knew that if more than most of what was last year's team, which still kind of feels like this year, but what was last year's team could be kept together, then 2023 had a chance to be really special. And not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but wanted to prove to everybody that Florida State could do this. A little bit of a negative misconception as to how Florida State would be able to fare in the NIL world, and we thought the institution itself has nothing to do with this. So when I say that the institution had been undersold, I'm just talking about the broader fan base and things like that. But we wanted to aggressively step into this space and prove that Florida State wasn't going anywhere, and that NIL wasn't just going to be kind of the ship leaving Florida State behind. No, Florida State could be involved and perhaps, be an absolute leader in this time. So we wanted to get involved quickly. We jumped headfirst into retention, and we think we did pretty well at that, and very much look forward to the future. But part of the future is broader public involvement. So that's what's kind of brought us to today.
Yeah, I guess you could walk me through. I think definitely I would say the public perception from the outside looking in, if you talk to national media types, even people across the state, was that Florida State was maybe a little late to the NIL game. I mean, John Ruiz was obviously a guy who was on the forefront of it. I know Gator Collective was kind of an early publicly funded that had, I know, a large group of donors or whatever the name for them was. So I guess what it felt like, it's funny the timing where in the last few months the battle's ended. I definitely improved Florida State standing there. Well, also I think a few of the other in-state rivals have kind of had very public mishaps, and so I guess the importance of having a prominent name in the Florida State space. I mean, you being involved in the Nolecast as long as you have been following Florida State athletics closely. Just I guess the importance of that, and I guess just the response. I mean, has it been gratitude from the fan base? I mean, what's kind of what do you hear from them?
Well, gratitude is a funny choice of words, because it's what it's what our own kind of one of our main internal compasses are, and that we try to do everything and be appreciative of like the wonderful opportunity that we have, and we think it's a wildly special time that we get to be somewhat of a representation of this fan base, and we get to, step into this space and prove both our own internal thesis, but also that, you know, like Florida State, even internally, may sell itself short sometimes. I hear fans talk about, well, if we get into one of these power conferences, will we forever be, mid-level dormant players? No, man, this is Florida State. This is an institution that's located as beneficially as any in the country when it comes to recruiting and acquiring talent. And this is a special place. And this is, does Florida State have the best fan base in the world? I don't know, Kurt. That's what coaches say in introductory press conferences. But is this special? Is this fan base exceptionally special? And does it have the ability to kind of harness its own passion and have that play out in a large part in the NIL arena? We certainly think so, and we're really excited. Now, my personal involvement has been nice, and sure, being a voice on the Nolecast and having the ability to speak directly to the fan base is critical. But whether or not this is successful is not going to be a whole lot about me. It's about whether or not we can continue to provide value to this fan base, and if the fan base continues to buy in and believe in what we're doing. So we've got to make sure that we're avoiding some of those rather public missteps that you mentioned in the beginning of the question. And as I've said to a couple outlets, we're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. You can't live in this landscape and not make mistakes. But I don't think we'll ever embarrass you. We'll never do anything for our own, our own good or profit. Like none of our compensation is based off how many deals get closed or the values of deals or anything else. And I think, candidly, I think that's where some people can get in trouble. If how do you how do you agree to some outrageous contract? Well, maybe somebody's getting some on the front end or the back end or both or whatever. So the way that this is structured, I think, is preventative of something like that to an extent. Again, we're never going to bat 1,000. Nobody does. But I can tell you that everybody involved in this group sees their involvement in this as, the opportunity of a lifetime. And I think goes about it with a decent amount of responsibility, only because we've all grown up as rabid, diehard Florida State fans, and the ability to stand in this space is just kind of humbling and awesome at the same time. So.
Yeah, I get. I don't know. I guess what I'm sure some of it's played close to the vest. What are you, I guess, able to share about that process? About, I guess, the checks and balances you maybe alluded to of ensuring things like that don't happen. I guess what are you able to share about the behind the scenes?
Well, I guess your checks and balances are at least as of this time. Now, this landscape's going to continue to change, and like if what Texas A&M proposed a couple of days, if what they're moving forward with, they're allowed to move forward with, then that's going to change things pretty significantly, because then you've got a group like the boosters basically involved um, in this, and that'll be a whole nother checks and levels and okays that have to be had throughout a process. Kurt, I don't know that I have a great answer to you, man. I mean, there's not, there's not. If somebody in our group, or if myself, for whatever reason, wanted to go do something stupid tomorrow, you can. I mean, this is a landscape in which there aren't a whole lot of rules. I just think that you have to make sure that you have your own internal ethos and mantra be about serving the sports and coaches and broader institutions that you're wanting to do better by. I don't think it's again, if somebody wants to go out and agree to some silly contract, there's not a whole lot standing in front of them or keeping them from doing that. I think it's really more self-policing and people making sure that they're getting involved in things in which they have the assets to make good on. So I don't know that that's a great answer, but that's the best one that I can give you right now.
It may not have been a great question. I'll take some there as well. But Yeah, I guess the process. I mean, I think I went through and counted on Twitter, and I think it was. I think like Battle's End tweeted about, I guess, kind of 35 deals with athletes, and I think the website said 60 plus. I guess I know Jordan Travis was kind of the first big domino to fall. As you're going through those talks, I mean, I remember I wrote a column about kind of the Jordan Travis ripple effect, that I thought it might make a difference in other guys' decisions. I guess how much was that in conversations with some other guys? I guess how much was that a talking point for them? And I guess just what did it mean, kind of having him on board as kind of the first big fish, if you will?
Yeah, so I've said this before. Jordan wasn't our first announcement, but Jordan was absolutely our first negotiation. I think we were all driving home from the Florida game. That was a Friday night, and I can't go into details, but I can tell you that that's the first the first phone call that was made to representation, and we got started on it immediately. And Jordan was certainly the alpha for this entity, as far as where the story starts and where we went. And we also knew that that was, if you didn't retain Jordan Travis, one, what were you doing? um yeah, look, obviously we want to be as positive and have as positive an impact on the sports that we serve as possible. uh but if you weren't retaining Jordan, is the zeal to keep Jared there as much, or Trey Benson, or Johnny Wilson? I don't know. So we knew we had to get Jordan. That had to be the starting point. And then, to an extent, everything else, if it wasn't easier, it would at least be more clear. And at some point, this is a group that wanted to stay together. We just needed to continue to provide proof as to who we were, and continue to provide proof that we could maybe help that decision making process be a little bit easier, or at least be a little bit more clear. So we're really proud as to what we were able to do in retention. We're really proud that we were able to use that as a introductory tool to ourselves, both domestically and abroad, as to who we were. And I think I think we're really excited as to what the future looks like. This landscape is always going to change. This landscape is always going to be very fluid. But we think we've got a great core team that, are we the best in the country at this? I don't know. But we're going to wake up every morning and work our asses off trying to be it. I can absolutely promise you that. And I think as long as you do that, are you going to be the best? Maybe, maybe not. Are you going to be up there? Yeah, I think we will be, and I think we will consistently continue to prove ourselves as such.
I know the large crop kind of at the front was all the, like you said, player retention was kind of the number one goal. And then I know once kind of January hit, and I think some guys were in. There were, I know, some transfers and some of the true freshmen on board as well. I guess where does that fall under the umbrella? I mean, is that something where kind of it's a wait until they're here and then you start? I guess what's the involvement to that degree? How does that differ?
It's just much easier if you wait until they're here. It really is. You can, and Kurt, again, what is legal in this space? I don't know, because things change, and there are some people out there that seem hell bent on just sticking their nose in the NCAA and seeing if they're going to do anything about it, and they may not be able to. So, but I'll just tell you that you can legally provide NIL to a high school kid, but it gets really dicey, man. It is hard to do it in a means that it's not viewed as an inducement. And I'm not just speaking in coded language here. It's just easier to wait. It really is. So and to an extent, I think that if you get retention right, it makes it easier for all the other conversations to take place, because the transfers have more faith that they're going to have opportunities when they get there. The recruits can talk to kids in the locker room. Maybe even more importantly, the recruits and their parents can talk to existing parents in the locker room, and know that you're serious about what you're doing. And I just, is, again, nothing stays the same in this landscape. There are very few things that are static. But we think if we get roster retention, if you take care of what's here, it makes the other parts of this process much easier and much more clear. And also, you get a reputation for doing things right, that, and I'm probably being too blunt, Kurt, here, but if you do things right for long enough, maybe you don't have to have the biggest number on the paper. Maybe you just are in a manner where there's confidence that a kid knows he's going to be taken care of over the 3 or 4 years that he's there, to where you don't have to, be the loudest voice in the room, so to say, when it comes to this.
Yeah, y'all launched, like you talked about, at a kind of an ideal time in terms of capitalizing, I think, on the program's momentum. I think some momentum a lot of people drastically wanted to see, had been kind of waiting for years.
Hmm.
I think also, I mean, the public launch this week kind of comes at a pretty good time, right on the heels of finally, after kind of the year and a half of Florida having the different set of rules from a lot of the country, with schools not being able to evolve, and that change finally last Thursday. I guess, how does that change things for y'all? Obviously, what, the first 2.5 months or so are kind of in a space where that can't happen. I guess, how does that change things now?
The law, we don't think changes a ton immediately. Now, the law may open things up long term for there to be different things in play, perhaps make some aspects of institutional involvement a little bit easier, although it's still pretty clear that you got to have fairly well documented delineation. So, um, we'll see what happens with the law. I will say, and this is not being critical of people. Look, this landscape is tough to decipher. But like the video with Mike Norvell was something that we've been working on for 5 or 6 weeks. So that came out immediately after the law was changed. But that was something that was legal prior with our um, official relationship with the university via Learfield. So that was something that we had been working on, and honestly, we had waited a little bit on that project to make sure that the website was shortly thereafter. So the law is great in the fact that maybe it makes a few of the restrictions that were there previously removed. I think the law, while it may not like specifically say this, the law was really written in a manner to make sure that nobody else committed $13.85 million to quarterback. Or you know what I'm saying? Like the law was basically trying to allow other people in the equation to maybe, if they didn't necessarily have their hands on it, that they might hear about things more as they were coming down the pipe. So um, I don't think the law it's not like, oh, passed on Thursday, Friday is going to be totally different. We'll just have to see what the long-term ramifications of the modification of the law is. But for us, it doesn't immediately change us from a day-to-day operation standpoint.
You talk about, I mean, the Mike Norvell video, and I was going to ask about that. And you talk, I mean, also, I know the Learfield deal kind of allows you to put the uniforms in the graphics, which I know was a big deal to some
Yeah.
people. I guess y'all have been, I definitely focused on, it feels like, the finer details, the little things. I guess, how important is that to y'all? It seems very important.
It does seem important. We want to do, and we want to sound we don't want to sound like a cliche machine or something like that, but we want to do everything that we do in as good a manner as possible. And it's funny, when I go back, at the time, I thought those announcement pictures were cool and I thought they were fine. I go back now and look at some of the original ones. I'm like, oh man, maybe we should have had trademarks and logos from day one, right? But it's not a it's not a insignificant check that has to be written for those. I can promise you, it's very real, and it was on the top of our list. It just wasn't, item number two to take care of or something like that. So I think we were doing announcements for about a month or so before we could do full marks. Maybe not even that, maybe a couple weeks. But we certainly saw all the Boston College jokes and everything else. And like I said, when I go back and look at them, I get it. But that was just kind of a small graduation of us as an entity, and we knew we needed to do that. We also knew that we didn't need to do that like on day three to be successful. So a limited group of people as of right now that are doing this. We're going to continue to grow and staff up, but to an extent, the that was just kind of a reflection of us having to kind of major in the majors in the first couple of days, and then attack some of the finer details, and that was certainly part of it, and that's kind of what we're doing in day 80, and I'm sure 81, 82, 83 will continue to have some minor details that I'm aware of, and then all sorts of other projects and issues that otherwise can't be planned.
we'll get into the public launch. I know that's part of why you're here for sure. It's maybe a big part of why you're here. I can understand why. I want to talk first about. I mean, I know you kind of had a lot of the private funding at launch coming from maybe a smaller number of people, and then I know you've had a couple other kind of. I know the Super Bowl trip was funded by kind of a second larger donation. Or I guess how did that come together? And then along those lines, I guess how many people like that? People who may be in the higher tiers of membership for the Battle's End going forward have kind of reached out and tried to show support even well y'all weren't public in that regard yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're creating avenues that we can try to have support from this fan base, from everything from a pledge at the SAE house to somebody that wants to try to give us a 7-digit donation. So we're going to have student memberships available. I believe they're available today, that are 2 payments annually, basically a semester payment, if you will. And then we're going to have unique experiences that can be created for mega donors or whatever you want to call them. So the Super Bowl trip was an example of that. There was a gentleman that was willing to make a very significant pledge to us, as far as a donation for the opportunity for he and his family to go to the Super Bowl with Jordan Travis and Trey Benson. And that was great for us to be able to get outside involvement. He was the first of that. And that is kind of a model in which we'll continue to evaluate and operate off of. There's everybody's important, man. If you can give us, $5 annually, that's incredible. If you can give us $50 a month, that's awesome. Um, but really, we want as much involvement as possible. We want this to be a reflection of this fan base. We want this to be a reflection of the passion and desire that the 7 or 8 of us feel that are working on this project, and also that we know that 70,000 or 80,000 fans out there feel. So we want to try to capture that and be as good of a reflection and representation of that as possible. And for some people, that may be a $1 million fishing trip with Jordan Travis. And for some people, it may just be liking and retweeting our tweets. That's a big deal. Follow us on Instagram. This is, at the end of the day, a marketing company. And if you can't give us any money, that doesn't mean that we don't want you to be involved. It just means you can click a button when you see a tweet, or you can share an Instagram post or whatever else. This is about trying to touch and tap into as many resources out there as possible. And wherever it may be that you fall on that spectrum, please know that you can go to battlesend.com. Maybe you can buy a sticker. Maybe you can help provide a maybe you can help provide a scholarship at some point in time, or endow a scholarship at some point in time. So we'd love for you to just go to the website, or you can always reach out to me, and we can explore what's possible. And like I said, we want to try to tap into every aspect of this fan base.
Yeah, the battlesend.com went live, I know, overnight and early this morning. And so I guess, yeah, walk me through. I mean, that was always, I know, the plan from talking to you. It just, you had the private funding at the start, but it was always the public plan long term. I guess walk me through. I know the tiers, I think they start as low as, what is it, like 20 or just shy of $20 a month? And then also I know one-time donations.
Yeah, we've got I think 1993 is our base level as far as a monthly payment. You can also do annual billing, which conveniently comes to $201.30. So we got the old 2013 on the back end and 1993 on the front. Good to whatever math genius calculated that one out. I can assure you it wasn't me, Kurt. But no, we've got the foot soldier membership, which is the one that I'm referencing there. Then we have gold, which is $100 a month, garnet 250, platinum 500, and diamond 1,000. Proud to say that we've had more movement on that diamond end today than I would have necessarily thought. So I won't read every membership benefit just for the sake of your listener, but we this was done with a significant amount of intentionality. We want to provide cool stuff to you. Now, honestly, Kurt, if you go onto our website and you sign up, you're doing that because you're a Florida State fan. You're passionate about Florida State athletics, Florida State football in particular, most likely. And so that has to be your driving force. But we also want to, be decent partners and return to you stuff that you're proud of, stuff that we think is a reflective of our organization. So we've gone out and found some really cool, like metal, like high end credit card membership cards. We've got some luggage tags. We just have things that well, I can promise you, if we're going to put our name on it, we will have put some thought into it, and we want it to be, cool, at least cool in some 39-year-old man's mind. And you may not find it to be cool when it lands in front of you, but we didn't just go and grab junk and are going to send you a box of junk if you choose to join us. I promise you.
Ingram, I appreciate the time and congratulations to y'all. I guess I'm open to anything else you want to share, but I think otherwise we've covered just about all the bases I had.
No, man, I really appreciate it. Again, if anybody has any questions, encourage them to reach out to me on Twitter if they would so please. But battlesend.com is the website. Very much appreciate you letting me join you and the Osceola, Kurt. And we'll come back in a month. We talked about this pre-record. We'll come back, do a live show in a month, and we can field questions as we're doing it. And I'll have a whole lot more knowledge and perspective as to how this landscape that changes every 48 hours is working and functional at the time. But really appreciate the conversation today.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Ingram. I will definitely take you up on that. I'm sure people will be looking forward to it.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.